Secrets of the Sussexes, let's roll. On paper, it's a perfect soap arc. The roving prince returns to London for Wellchild. Instantly, hope of a private meeting with his father flickers, columns whisper about a monumental shift, and headlines carefully slip in the word reunion. But reality, as ever, is spare, hard, and royal about motivation, not music. The sharpest sound this week isn't applause at the ceremony or flashes at Windsor. It's a line from someone who worked inside the machine. The king doesn't trust Harry. Not a primetime know-it-all, but a straight explanation of court logic. Once you put the family kitchen on global broadcast, you get screened at every door thereafter. No sentimental comeback overturns that. The phrasing came from Grant Herald, Charles's former butler, who said aloud what's been easy to read on lips. After Spare and the media tour, trust is gone and won't return, while any conversation with the youngest son might become a podcast, a series, or the next chapter of a memoir. Yes, Harry did come back for Wellchild, his favorite charity date, where he can deliver moving, often sincere words about the grit of sick children and their parents. The visit is documented, the London shots exist, even the press kept a rare even tone, no hysteria, no extra brackets. He also went up to Nottingham's community recording studio, part of the human Harry image since his youth, and announced a major donation to tackle youth violence via BBC Children in Need. Reports differ on the number, but the order of magnitude is clear and significant. Over that concrete layer, the media did what it does. Cranking the meeting with his father is all but inevitable storyline. Cautious outlets hedged, tabloids didn't. And running in parallel came commentary that spelled it out in bold: trust zero, caution maximum. Which is the point to grasp? If a meeting happens, it won't be reconciliation, it will be damage control. The palace in 2025 doesn't run on family drama, it runs on risk management. In that matrix, Harry isn't a lost son to be embraced, he's an uncertainty labeled potential future content. Herald says as much. The worry isn't the talk itself, it's what the talk might be packaged into a week later. Today you sit down, tomorrow you argue, the next day it's a book chapter, a streaming episode, or a magazine confession. That isn't malice, it's accounting. The monarchy's reputation costs more than a warm family photo, and Windsor's risk office never sleeps. Hence the cold calculus. If there's a meeting, it won't be trailed, confirmed, or fed to sources. It'll happen in the only mode that works, no footage, therefore it probably happened. Any leak kills the effect before the tea cools. That's why public steps toward each other will continue to look like parallel routes. Harry, Wellchild and community work. Charles, his duties and treatment. William, the schedule that doesn't need a family catharsis soundtrack. The conveyor belt of service beats the series of self-expression over distance, even when the latter is louder. Harry's defenders say everyone makes mistakes and family should be above grievances. Lovely sentiments, but in a world where any private scene can become public product, moral rhetoric isn't enough. Palace logic obeys the irreversibility of trust. It isn't restored by a podium apology, it's rebuilt by silence. Not for a month or two, for years. Fill those years with interviews, protocol complaints, remixes of old wounds, and accidental leaks, and predictability drops below zero. So the king doesn't trust him isn't a verdict, it's the system doing what it must to survive. There are, of course, hooks for romantics. Harry presented better, no staged spats, a neat nod to his grandmother's memory, restrained lines on the Wellchild stage. In Nottingham, banter, selfies, music, a generous check. All technically right, and even. British media allowed a few warm phrases. But doing the ritual right no longer suffices. The shadow of Spare is too long, the memory too fresh of confidences converted into content for sale. Herald's point lands not as a bitter ex-staffer, but as someone paid to sense the lines of propriety. Staff have aired the laundry before, but this time it was one of our own. For the monarchy, that's the worst-case scenario. None of this gets patched by one reconciliatory meeting. Not 2. Not 10. Trust returns through sustained information, quiet stretches where not a single private aside becomes ammo for a PR campaign. It's hard because it starves attention. It's boring because it starves storyline. It's slow because it starves quick wins in the tabs. But it's the only bridge back, and it's built not with posts about fatherhood changed everything, but with the capacity to go years without monetising conversations, yours or theirs. On packaging, this week revealed a second crack, the gap between reality and the press kit. Some outlets painted a warm Nottingham crowd of local kids, others showed sparse interest and empty barricades. Here, triumphant return. There, a murky week of outings that felt like rehearsals. One objective fact: Harry's gift of the gab doesn't cancel the country's fatigue with the never-ending Harry saga. Where fatigue sets in, old spells fail. Show up like before, and the crowd doesn't. This isn't conspiracy or spite. It's a burnt-out bulb of attention. You don't replace it with posters, you replace it with uncredited deeds. Here's the nerve everyone skirts: Charles cannot be a father on camera. He can be one behind a closed door, ideally, forever unseen. The moment it enters public space, it becomes a political signal. Any gesture, any "we spoke," will be read as either the palace blinked or the sun capitulated. Both are losses for the institution. The king is a hostage to the crown, that's the price of the role. He doesn't owe us likability, he owes us the code of silence that keeps the monarchy from dissolving into interview fragments. So treat the flicker of meeting already scheduled without romance. If we see silence, maybe a talk happened. If we see sources confirm, they likely didn't. Someone was priming the ground for another pressure round. Meanwhile, People calmly logs the facts and well-child photos, the agencies carry tidy footage, tabloids warm the crowd with the ice is thawing. In parallel, court historians and royal watchers repeat what Herald and many before him have said: rehabilitation requires apologies and guarantees of no more books. Not an ultimatum, just technical requirements for a risk source. A word about Herald's own book. Yes, he's promoting memoirs, he says so. But his talking points map to the sign over the palace gate: here's how it works. If you carried the trash out, you're now a pro at trash, but the cupboard is closed to you. The irony. A former staffer now speaks the language of the institution, while the son speaks the language of entertainment. Which dialect wins in Windsor is rhetorical. So, the week in full, Harry made a set of good moves, showed up where he was once respected, said things that are hard to contest, sent money where it's needed now. But it's not enough when the structural problem, the toxicity of public oversharing, remains. Charles isn't nursing a grudge, he's guarding boundaries. After Spare, those boundaries run across live flesh. Any talk with the younger son is only possible under conditions where there will never be an exit to the public square. Cold, unfeeling, anti-hype, and the only thing that works. Here's the moral punch. The public loves fathers and sons, but hates it when that story becomes a content bundle. From 2020 to 2024, Harry taught everyone that a heartfelt talk is a commodity. In 2025, he's reaping that rulebook. The king isn't obliged to sob on air, he's obliged to build walls sturdy enough that no whisper becomes someone's coin tomorrow. If that offends you, welcome to adulthood. Better to lose a son publicly than lose the crown permanently. Will there be that meeting? Possibly. Will we hear about it? Hopefully not. That would be the sign the system still holds. Until then, remember this week's formula, without which future comebacks are doomed: trust has no press releases. It has years of silence. Harry, for the first time, stands at a door where what's required isn't speaking, it's not speaking. Long, dull, without likes or episodes. If he can do it, we'll hear it in the palace's tone by spring or next year. If he can't, we'll get the same final scene: handsome images, right words, generous checks, and a king who still doesn't trust. That's the real price of truth at any cost. When truth is a business model, trust becomes a luxury. And kings, alas, don't buy luxury from their own content suppliers.